Hi there, students. In this video I want to look at if it wasn't for you, if it hadn't been for you, but for you. So in all these phrases you're talking about what would happen or what would have happened without your help. You're saying that this situation or this person is the only thing that has prevented something bad from happening. Yeah, but for your help, I would have been in great difficulty. If it hadn't been for the money that my father lent me, I would have gone bankrupt. If it wasn't for you, if it weren't for you, I think you can use if it wasn't for you or if it weren't for you. Both are good. I think I'm happier with the subjunctive because this phrase is saying, but you did help me, but this situation does exist. And if it didn't exist, and I think a subjunctive is better. So if it weren't for the fact that it was so expensive, I would buy it. So but for the expense or but for the cost, I would buy it. Okay, so this is it's saying without something, without the help of, except for. So let's look at but for a second more. There were very few people walking on the street, but for the postman who was walking along the street. So notice this but for with the exception of. Okay, so but for we can use in two different ways. Whereas but for the lucky circumstance, I would have got lost. But for finding the landmark, I would have been completely lost. So if it hadn't been for, if this situation hadn't happened, so if it had not been for, if this past situation hadn't occurred, if it weren't for, the present situation would be different. If it weren't for your help at the moment, this job would be more difficult. If it hadn't been for your help in the past, then the situation would have been more difficult. But for your help, and this, it doesn't say if it's past or present, but you go on to say it. But for your help, I would be lost now. But for your help, I would have been lost yesterday. But notice as well with but for, except for. So, give me everything but for your clothes. So give me everything you've got but for your clothes. Keep your clothes, but but give me everything else. Okay? So but for, except for. You're talking about the only factor that causes something not to happen, or the only factor present. So the area was completely covered in grass, but for a small area in the corner, except for. But for the money that the government gives me, life would be very difficult if it wasn't for that fact, for that situation. Were it not true, yeah, were it not like this, had it not been for your kindness, I would have felt very sad. Had it not been for your kindness, this would have been very difficult. But for the grace of God go I. So this is a phrase that this is recognizing that God has blessed us, and like that we haven't had the misfortunes of other people. So this is accepting that other people's misfortunes or problems could be our own. So, but for the grace of God, if it wasn't for the grace of God, if it weren't for the grace of God, then I could be in the same situation. Okay, so but for, except, but for something. If not for something, or if not for someone, very often, but for someone. But for the presence of a doctor in the situation, he would have died. Yeah, if it hadn't been for the doctor who was there, the person would have died. Yeah, okay. If it weren't for the doctor who is here now, this person would have died, okay, or would be dying. So, but for, were it not for, notice were it not for, this is instead of if it weren't for. Yeah, had it not been for, if it had not been for. So this inversion is giving us an if clause. So enough. If you enjoyed the video, give it a rating, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you soon. Bye for now. But for, were it not for, had it not been for, if it weren't for, if it had not been for.